Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good day and welcome to the show on this Sunday, the 2nd of May, 2021. Thank you for tuning in. You know what? We've seen lumber prices go massively high. I had to buy a couple sheets of plywood, 3 sheets of plywood. Oh my goodness, half-inch plywood, $65 a sheet. I used to get that stuff for 14 bucks. You know? And they're saying like 300. I can see 300% increases in the price. So I mean, I'm going to tell you, there's certain conglomerates that control the lumber, out there. And let me see, lumber industry is controlled by just a handful of firms. And some of the biggest of these are like Weyerhaeuser Company, Georgia Pacific, West Fraser Timber Company, and there's others. There's a number of other ones. These are some of the bigger ones that control the lumber out there, and there's huge stockpiles of lumber being stacked up and not making it to the nearest Home Depot or whatever, It's being stacked up in big, huge piles of it. Makes me wonder, what's going on, I mean, it's their right. If they want to take their lumber and they want to stack it up someplace and not take it to the warehouses and the prices stay high, it's their right to do that if they want to, But I'm going to tell you, the cure for high prices of lumber, the cure for that is high prices of lumber. Timber, the raw material they use to make lumber out of, is not something that's in short supply. It's a renewable resource. Very renewable. I'll tell you a story. There's this fella I used to know maybe 20 or 30 years ago. His name was Chris. He's a lumber guy, I got a piece of property here. Between me and the big highway, the big 4-lane highway, there's a big stand of trees, that's about maybe, I don't know, it's maybe a quarter-mile thick, there. He come in there and he cut all that right down to the ground. I mean, he cut it to the ground. I could see the main highway from my house. And that was about maybe 18 years ago. Now, those trees in there are like 40 and 50 and 60 feet tall. They've grown back over those years, Lumber grows back amazingly fast. It grows like grass. You go out there and, oh, honey, you got to cut the grass again this weekend. Oh, no, Martha, cut the grass again. Yeah, it grows that fast. Well, lumber grows that fast, too. So the cure for high lumber prices. I mean, right now, the price they're getting for lumber, it's like gold, for crying out loud. It's went up. Gold doesn't went nowhere. I was just thinking to myself, what if all these miners were to get together and say, hey, let's do the same thing as the lumber guys? That'd be smart for the miners to do that, They could. I mean, it must be going through their minds, Anyway, we don't have a whole lot happening. I'll tell you one of the things I notice that's happening right now. I watch very carefully the COVID numbers in the United States. Starting to drop. Today was a big drop, I think, in the amount of new cases. Starting to drop, and we're heading toward that recovery I told you guys about. As we progress into this recovery this summer, I can see prices on everything starting to go sky high, and it becomes very obvious that the Fed can't deny it anymore. They can't fudge the numbers on the CPI or anything like that. You're going to have to face facts. And they're going to be looked at to do something. I mean, they made big talk there. Chairman Powell got up there and he made a big talk about how, oh yeah, we can control inflation. We have tools. What they're talking about is raising interest rates. I'm going to tell you, stock valuations are so high right now. We've never been higher in history. Before the crash in 1929, we were not this far bloated. The markets were not this far bloated. Back before the 1929 stock market crash, And the thing is this market is just waiting for an excuse to fall back. It's exhausted. It's pretty much exhausted. The market's pretty much exhausted right now at this point. It's went up, 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 and it's plateaued up there, and it's just exhausted. So at this point, if they try to hike rates, maybe 2 or 3 months from now, when they can't deny the inflation anymore and they're required to do something about it. They bragged about how they can do it. They can do it and everything. Let's let them see them try it. Try it on. Go ahead, boys. Try to raise interest rates and see what happens. And interest rates on the long end are creeping up anyway. What can they withstand? Now, we're going to talk about the 10-year here just for a minute. Before the markets crash, how high can that 10-year go? I'm going to give you guys my mark. I think the market can withstand 2% on the 10-year, but no more. I think if it creeps up past 2%, we're in very, very dangerous ground for a market crash. And I think by the time it gets probably around 2.25 or 2.5%, we will witness a market crash. Rising yields now. Now, I know a couple years ago, the market was able to sustain 3.25% on the 10-year. I understand that. But we're not dealing with the same situation now with the market that we were dealing with 2 or 3 years ago. This is a totally different animal now at this point. And this market cannot withstand much more than 2% on the US 10-year, right? Now on the short end, and this is where they'll probably try to raise the overnight rate by maybe 25 basis points. They'll try to sneak a rate hike in there as their measure that they want to try to quell inflation and slow down inflation. They'll probably try to raise 25 basis points. That's all it's going to take. They're going to be met with a reaction that they never expected from the markets. A tantrum. The markets are going to throw a tantrum. And don't think it'll stop. Unless the Fed hauls back on that, it's not going to stop. Once that fall gets underway and it gains momentum and it gains that negative bearish energy. Bitcoin is on the precipice with the markets because it's been bloated. But what about gold and silver? They're just exactly the opposite. Gold and silver have not seen any bullish. They're the only thing out there that hasn't, like lumber prices went through the roof, food prices are going through the roof, everything you buy from Amazon's going through the roof, everything, prices on everything, but gold and silver just aren't moving, they're not budging. Well, it costs money to get gold and silver out of the ground. And these miners are going to find that this year, their costs are going to be like 25% more than last year. But the price of silver's not budging. Something's going to break, in gold and silver. And I'm not talking about break to the downside. I'm thinking to myself, if everything starts to roll over and collapse, and Bitcoin is bubblicious. It's in a bubble just like the markets. If all these bubbles start to break because the Fed decides to do something about inflation and they decide to raise interest rates or whatever they're going to do, and everything starts to break, this time they might run to gold and silver as a safe haven asset because it's the only thing that's on the bottom ready to go up. All these other things have had their up. They're already up. Gold and silver's not. So for the contrarian investor right now, you'd be very smart if you take a second look at gold and silver for the contrarian investor. I'm talking about real physical metal. And I'm going to tell you guys, you got to be careful nowadays. This is the most perilous period in human history for the investor. And for everybody in all qualities, it's the most perilous time. Anyway, listen, you guys, thank you for listening to my show this weekend. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the very next episode. Bye-bye.